Now, my next guest trains police, security forces all over the world. He joins me in the studio. It's Noel Whelan of NGW International. Noel, welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, given that you go around the world talking to anti-terror groups like the police and so on, how do we rate Ireland, that is?
Well, I think in the rates of anti-terrorism, which is prevention, and counter-terrorism, which is response, I think this is something that can't be rated at because we haven't really been tested in the environment that we're actually in now. Because in relation to terrorism, we have to look at our own history with terror, the long history we had between the North and South and how we handled that. I think in those conventional ways, very good, but this is a paradigm shift. This is totally different to what people are prepared for. But when we say, how are we prepared, we can't just look at this as a national level. We might be well prepared here security-wise, but what happens when Irish people travel abroad? This is where we come into problems. Most people will only look at a holiday for 2 weeks of the year and say, I want to go here. It looks good, the sky is blue, the sea is blue, I want to go on holiday. But they're not looking at what the bigger implications are if we have instability politically in other countries. That's where they start to get affected because they're not thinking. They think, this is good, I want to go there, I want to rest. But what they're doing is they're actually increasing the risk of attack when they actually go, depending on the part of the world they wish to go to. So we have to look at it differently.
All right. So, I mean, are you suggesting, therefore, and we don't have to name them, but I mean, we could take out the map of Europe and say, I'm going on holiday. Yeah. I mean, for instance, we can name one in the shape of Tunisia, where the bottom dropped out of the tourism market after the massacre on the beaches. Yes. Are you saying everybody goes on holiday now? The discussion is about the hotel, the climate, the food, and the possibility of a terror attack. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I actually put this to the test a few years ago. When Egypt had the big attacks a couple of years ago, I actually went to a tourist company and I said, hello, yes, I wanted to see. I wanted to go on a holiday. So I went to a very famous tour agent and said, I'd like to go on holiday to Egypt. It was 3 weeks after the attacks in Egypt. And I said, I'd like to go. Oh, yes. But is it safe for me to go there, playing as you do? Because you want to see. Oh, it's very safe. It's wonderful. Oh, it's beautiful. It's fabulous. It's all safe now. And they were very happy to take my money. But the question is, what gave this young lady the right to make a political, national, international security assessment to me when she didn't know what she was talking about? She'd never even been there. So I went through the whole process as a tourist, flip-flops, sun cream, and went through to see the whole process and assessing myself. And you know, when you look at that, you're saying to yourself, people are coming on holidays. They're still floating into Tunisia. They're still going for the cheap option of the holiday. Don't get me wrong, these countries are beautiful. They do have security situations and there's fabulous people there to look after you, but they do have problems. So you have to look way beyond just the cost of the cheap holiday. So just looking at the holiday, the cost, the benefits, everything, you do have to look at the security situation as well.
But that's 2 weeks out of 52.
Yes.
The other 50 were in Cork, Dublin or Galway. So what were we? I mean, Simon Coveney says we're eminently prepared. The attack is unlikely. The Gardaí are saying that, you know, they're just literally on our news bulletin. They've got a whole new pile of Garda sergeants, and they are preventing attacks. Nobody ever tells us about the attacks they prevent, of course, whether it's Ireland, Britain or America. Isn't that so? So well, what do we know? I mean, it seems to me, I don't know anything. I don't know whether we're well prepared or not well prepared.
Yeah. Well, I think the security forces in Ireland, you know, on the per se, are doing a very good job. They will. And I know personally, going back a number of years, they have had people on watch lists here for a long period of time. And they do a very good job of dealing with that. And even though I don't live in Ireland anymore, I still watch what's happening here. And they have been intercepting people who are on watch lists here who wish to travel abroad. But like everything else, it's okay the government being prepared. And as I said, only the government here will know their strategic, technical, tactical and strategic imperatives for these types of attacks. But we're not dealing with groups of people, armies of people. We're dealing with individuals. The danger here is the lone wolf, the man, the woman, the youngster who wishes to go into a crowd of people. not necessarily with weapons of with bombs, knives, or to use vehicles as weapons. How can you see inside the mind of an individual? When you go to groups to become vulnerable, terrorists become vulnerable because they have to communicate. So we're now starting to see the rise of the individual taking out these attacks. So how can you say you can see inside the mind of the individual and know what they're going to do? For example, we've seen a huge rise in the increase of people knowing that they have security metal detectors in city centres. So what they do is they go and buy ceramic knives, because ceramics are baked from stone, and they use these ceramic weapons to actually stab people. Now, when you have a ceramic, the content will not pick up as well in a metallic searching object. So they're always finding ways around this. So it's not just being prepared. We've got to be looking through the eyes, as I tell people and I explain to people and the chiefs of police in foreign countries. We've got to see through the eyes of the attacker. We've got to see through the eyes. Most governments use what we call risk models for these types of attacks. We can't look through risk. We need to look through a threat module. Where can the possibility be? Now, I know they've been very active here doing this, sharing intelligence with other European countries, and Ireland is contributing well to international security. But remember, we're a peace-loving country. We've always prized ourselves on having a good pint, a good bit of music, good chat. But we're not going to be attacked for being Ireland. And if it does come, we'll be attacked for what we represent. And that's the bigger picture.
All right, but if we look at, there are a number of issues, it seems to me, because you opened the conversation by talking about the 30-year war in Northern Ireland. Now, what we had, one assumes, we had intelligence. The reason we had intelligence was, whether it was the RUC in the north or the Garda Síochána down here, they were dealing with Irish men and women. They spoke their language. They, whatever faith they had or had allegiance to, they shared that too. The terrorist and the policeman were the same. What we now surely have is a terrorist and a policeman who are not the same. The policeman doesn't speak the same language, doesn't give allegiance to the same faith, has no marginal understanding of the culture, and we don't have any people in our police force who come from that culture. So how the heck can we get intelligence?
Well, you've just really hit the nail on the head, George. You see, here's what's happening. I've only been in Dublin now for less than 24 hours. And I've noticed, it's been 2 years since I've been home here to my own country. And I see the dynamics and the demographics of Ireland changing. Where you find great intelligence is through taxi drivers, through people cleaning buildings. They have so much information out there. That's why we can't keep bashing. Now, this is going to be a very controversial statement. I know you're not a stranger to controversy yourself. That as long as people keep saying the Muslims, this group, the xenophobia increases, what's going to happen is you're going to lose lots of vital information. When you look even at the attacks in Madrid or in Barcelona just a couple of days ago, when they were tracking this Yunus Abu Ayyub, this dissident, this terrorist who was actually online communicating in Arabic, and actually speaking and transferring information to what we call an emir. An emir is like a leader in this world, a military leader, who's actually loose in Spain at the moment. And they're trying to find this man, who's the commander who coordinates these attacks. Who would you think intercepts these? It's not just native Arab speakers. You have to have people that can listen in, who are dedicated to protection of people. You need the people from the Islamic faith, and there's many of them.
We don't have that.
But
not in our police force. But hold a while now. There's a key difference here, it seems to me. Now, I'm xenophobic, okay? Happily xenophobic. So let's look at what happened in the 30-year war.
Yes.
If they pulled in a guy who they suspected was a terrorist, they didn't have to prove he was a terrorist. They went to a special criminal court, which had been set up with 3 judges, and on the word of a police, I think a police inspector was the rank. The police inspector stood up in court and said, in my belief, this man was a terrorist. And that guy finished up in jail.
Yep.
Was never found guilty. He was on the word of a policeman. Now, if a policeman stands up in court and says, in my belief, this man is an Islamic terrorist, is an ISIL fundraiser, is an ISIL recruiter, all of which has happened in recent weeks, all the would-be terrorist or alleged terrorist has the best legal brains that money can buy. He has organisations like Amnesty and whatever on the side, and he will not be deported and he will not go to jail. So if we do it for Irish people, how the hell are we going to protect ourselves against foreigners?
Exactly. And this is a really interesting situation now, because what we're seeing now under our own models, when we have, democratic institutions, we have the laws, we have trial by discovery, we have trial by innocent until proven guilty, we see large variations internationally. So what's happened is when you have these civil liberties being curbed by governments. You see, some things are out of our control. These are questions for statesmen, constitutionalists, all these people. So when you take people's civil liberties away, that's what we've seen in America, we've seen in France and all these countries, curbing back people's civil liberties. That's exactly what these terrorists want, these groups, these strategists want. Terrorism absolutely thrives in liberal democracy because we're free to speak, but we're not free to act. So by the time they've acted, the crime has been committed. So now maybe what we really need is to start reinterpreting. Now this is going to cause mayhem, now what I'm going to say, but maybe we really need to start looking at the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Liberties Act, because where does the rights of the people who've been murdered?
Exactly. And finally, I have to say, and I'm sure my guest is aware, that the man proven to be the ringleader of the attack on Madrid cannot be deported because the civil libertarians think he might be tortured wherever he goes. My thanks for that contribution to Noel Whelan of NGW International. 53106 is always the number for your text messages.
High Noon with George Hook. Thanks to ClaytonHotels.com with 17 hotels across Ireland and the UK.
All right. George, how many innocent people were put in prison on the word of an inspector, or how many false confessions were beaten out of people just so the authorities had somebody thrown in jail, says Brian of Wexford? I don't know. But I'm also reasonably sure that the idea of not arresting anybody on the so-called premise that they might be tortured in their homeland is just as weak an argument. But, excuse me. Noel Whelan, his book is Where Demons Dread. It's on Amazon ebook.